what am I doing for my last name, not my first? What is the type of person I'll be proud of when I'm 50, not when I'm 30? Where that takes you, like where you end up, I think goals are important, but I think like how you get to achieve the goals is probably more important. I think that's why we're trying to document it, is because like 99% of the day is just doing shit. Like it's customer service emails, it's production issues, it's going out and packing boxes.
What version of yourself do you feel like you had to kill when you left Shine to become the man that could lead Hyro into the next chapter?
Very much a full hero's journey, death, rebirth, abyss moment in time where you kind of blank canvas. It was going to take some time off and go to Europe, and actually had it in the calendar with my girlfriend at the time. And then literally on the last day of Shine, we found out we're pregnant. Probably always have a baseline anxiety of like 10-20%. Like it's like a gentle simmer. And it's this like little voice inside my head that I could do more and I could be better and I'm not living up to my potential. And at the end of my days, like the person I could have become meets the person I became, and that person's like looking down on me and I did, like they're a stranger. And I'm like, oh fuck, that gets me up. Like,
where do you think most like first time Ecom founders go wrong when it comes to like brand positioning or not executing their launch properly?
I would say they just don't think about it. I feel like so many people are either just like fast following some other brand and it's like a copycat thing. And as long as you're following, you never lead.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. I know you're going to love this one as well. We had Steve Chapman in the house. He's the founder of Shine and Hyro, the brand you can see sitting on the table. Two extremely successful, super high growth businesses that I know you're going to love talking about that journey. Hyro, he's gone a complete e-com approach and they're growing 100%, not year on year, 100% month on month growth. So it's really, really impressive. He's a tremendous operator, a really smart guy. So I got to tap into his brain for the last hour or so. And I really enjoyed it. I know you guys are going to get so much value out of this one. So we'll get into the podcast in a second. Before we do, can I please ask you guys for a few favors? If you're watching on YouTube, could you please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? We're on the road to 5K and we're so close. If you guys can help me hit 5K as quickly as possible, I'd really, really appreciate it. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave me a 5-star review, that really, really helps the channel grow. The bigger the channel gets, the better entrepreneurs and guests we get to have on week in, week out, and the more value we get to bring to you guys. So thank you to everyone who's been doing it over the last few weeks and months. It doesn't go unnoticed. I see you and I appreciate you. Let's get into the podcast.
All right, let's rock and roll. Steve Chapman, welcome to the podcast, brother. Now, I've been looking forward to this one for a little bit. Joe over in the UK, he'll be watching this when he edits this. He's spewing his in here. Now, let me do a little bit of an intro and we'll jump into this. Now, I'm a little bit of a rambler, but we got a time limit. We've got an hour, so I might be a little bit more specific and not let myself ramble as much today. But for those that don't know Steve, he's the co-founder of Hyro and Shine. Now, Shine's a brand that I saw absolutely explode really, really quickly. It's been everywhere for the last 5, 6, 7 or so years. Latest reports I read in the research I was doing today, over 60 million in sales, but I'd assume that's probably more than that. But what I'm most keen to speak about today is your latest venture, Hyro. It's new. It's a much newer brand. You just hit your first 12 months in business. But very quickly, you've built a lot of hype behind it, growing like 100% month on month. So a lot of really exciting growth and there's no signs of slowing down. And something I'll say for you guys, because I think this is going to be perfect. A lot of you will be interested. For anyone that wants to go and watch someone build in public, build a brand, Steve's documenting the startup journey on his YouTube channel. So go check that out. It's a really good follow. I probably watched 3 or 4 of those episodes today. It was good to get a behind the scenes little fly on the wall view to your world and what that looks like. So enough from me for now, but welcome, man. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
So where we'll start now, coming off the back of Shine, an extremely successful business that, scaled really quickly and was, had distribution in over 7,000 stores. Very impressive. What I want to ask you, because I know the mental journey for one step away from a business like that and then reconfigure yourself to start a new business. What I want to know is what version of yourself do you feel like you had to kill when you left Shine to become the man that could lead Hyro into the next chapter?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very much a full hero's journey, death, rebirth, abyss moment in time where you kind of blank canvas. It was, at the time when I was leaving, I was going to take some time off and go to Europe and, actually had it in the calendar with my girlfriend at the time. And then literally on the last day of Shine, we found out we were pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So it was like cancel Europe and I was going to be in Sydney and kind of having to provide now for a family. And so I was like, look, I'm going to be here. I've got to, get serious and mature. I'm not going to go play in Never Never Land for a while. I wanted to go build something. I've just had that DNA to build shit since I was a young kid. But I wanted to do it differently. I was like, I've got to philosophy of like win or learn. I think they're the only two outcomes from any activity. And there's so many learnings from Shine. Yeah, a bunch of wins. It was a great overall success. But I think, you know, when you look back, it's like, oh, I wish I could do that differently. Wish I could. And it's like playing The Sims, but knowing how to play The Sims. Like press restart on Sims, but you played it before.
Yeah.
So you just don't make as many mistakes. You kind of like cut the shit. You go straight to what's most important and what's going to move the needle. You know, we went into e-commerce instead of trying to build a retail brand to start with. We went with like a high margin product, easy to ship, something that you can really scale through paid ads and influencers and ambassadors and things. You know, in a new category that with Shine, we were like first to market and kind of category defining with nootropics and better for you energy. But like we were like 2-3 years, maybe even 4 years ahead of like where the rest of we were probably like lead in the US at one point. And Australia is usually like 2-3 years behind the US. So with Hyro and with hydration and kind of electrolytes, I saw that happening in the US, and then we were like perfect timing in Australia. Like there was a couple brands trying and fumbling their way around, and no one had done this kind of new age hydration brand. So I thought category and timing of market was like, couldn't be better. And then the business model was kind of a way better business model than what I learned from Shine.
So how long was in between you give like your final day at Shine and like this, like starting the build?
Look, my last day officially at Shine was like July, let's say 2023, I think it was. And then we launched 13th of April, 2024.
So you pretty much went straight into build mode.
Yeah, I tried to consultancy for a little bit. You know, I think that's sometimes the entrepreneur's dream. It's like, oh yeah, just dabble on the side, get paid a ride, and then help other people build their businesses, which I still do a little bit of. I found two things happening. One, I'd like do too much and building someone else's business for them and have no upside. Or here's a great plan, here's what to do, but no execution behind it.
So let me ask you this. You spoke about the overall success of Shine, but I know there were some decisions or some things that didn't go the way that you planned, or maybe just weren't in alignment with the way you wanted to operate anymore. What's the one like major lesson or major mistake that you were really cognizant of not repeating when building this brand from the ground up?
I would say there'll be a few things. I think focus on brand marketing earlier. I think I focused on distribution sales in Shine. If you are a really, really good marketer, you don't need to sell it down your life because people come to you. Where I was like an art of sales in Shine, and I could hustle and I could get, you know, in Shine, I figured out there's 12 people in a country that held the keys to 12,000 doors of retail, like Coles, Woolies, 7-Eleven, BP, Caltex, etc. And if I became best friends with those 12 people, then you get 12,000 doors and it's a $20 million business. So that was my thing. But like there's a job to get it into the stores when you play in retail. And then there's more important job is to get off the shelves and into consumers' hands. And you've always got that middleman, you know, retailer that you need to kind of convince, but then ultimately you got to convince the consumer to buy it and drink it.
What did that look like for Shine? Because I was a really early adopter in terms of like, I was like, because again, like, you know, it's perfect for entrepreneurs, that sort of product. Yes, you don't want to be drinking like V's and Red Bulls. It's a bit too much, but you do need a bit of a pick me up. So I was seeing you guys just in servos the first time. So what's this? Started paying attention. And then I saw you everywhere, but I don't remember ever seeing an ad for Shine. So how did you actually get them off the shelves? How did you sell through with Shine? What was the things that you did to move the needle with that business? I think you can focus as an entrepreneur on a few different levers, and you can kind of play the product game. And Shine was a great product. Like the formulation was spot on. I think the repeat purchase was really high. So when someone tried it, then they'll tell their friend and they'll keep purchasing. That works. Like that's an organic flywheel. It's a slow way to do it. But the product stood up, and then the distribution from a physical availability stood up. But at the end of the day, you're going against Red Bull and V, and these Red Bull's a cool brand. Like they're spending billions of dollars on cool shit every year. Like product is cooked now, and no one really drinks the product, but a lot of people still drink it. But the next generation of consumers aren't resonating with that type of product anymore. So their brand continues to be more and more loved, but what they internally even call is can love, and their can actually decreases of love over time. So I think, look, product stood up, distribution stood up, but I think we didn't elevate the brand in a sophisticated, elevated way to compete at the end of the day on an emotional storytelling level with the likes of your Red Bulls and Cokes and the biggest brands in the world, where we're trying to do a better job with that earlier with Hyro. And I think when you play in a direct-to-consumer game, you know, you're talking direct to consumers. You know, if you're in a retail store, all you have is that front end packaging, and all you have is the yellow ticket on sale. And it's very hard to build true resonancy with the consumer if you're not spending the big money on campaigns and stuff, if you're not direct to consumer. Talk to me about that, because I have done a bunch of research on you, seen what you've been speaking about. Now, I know one of the major things that was off in terms of the Shine model that you wanted to consciously fix with the Hyro model is the unit economics, and like being laser obsessed with the unit economics from before you launch rather than trying to get to scale, then figure it all out. Talk to me about your lessons there and what you think went wrong with Shine and what could have been done better with Shine versus, hey, I'm not going to do this and I specifically want to do this to set up a business profitably and sustainably profitably from the start.
Yeah, for sure. And it was probably the lesson of the environment I was in at the time, where it was very much like, how do we look at tech? I think VC was a big time in market at the moment. Everyone raised a lot of money and then kind of bought market share and hope to figure out the profitability later. And, Facebook's an example, Amazon's an example, like these big tech startups, I think we're borrowing some thinking from that and applying it to beverage. And also looking at the US, very common in the US strategy as well, which is, I think Liquid Death had like 20% gross profit margins for a long, long time, and they're scaling rapidly, but they're making 5 cents a can, which is, unless if you have, which they raise like hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not a sustainable business strategy. Where Shine, we tried to apply that like grow at all cost, we'll figure out the gross profit later. And I just didn't know about it. It was the first time I was building a beverage brand. Whilst not actually funding it like, Liquid Death with hundreds of millions. So we got stuck in this. The strategy didn't match the resources available. Where in Australia, if it's contract manufacturing, if it's Coles and Woolies retail, if it's distribution costs of, the trucks and the people and the labor, it's very, very hard to do that model successfully without a lot of cash. So I'd more encourage entrepreneurs today to focus on unit economics. If you're an Australian business, from day one, particularly if you're in food and bev, and making sure you're getting that right from day one.
Let's talk about like launching Hyro. Now, talk to me about what the problem was you wanted to solve with this and why that problem. Why is that what you were passionate about coming off the back of another like a different beverage brand? But so why that problem and why were you so passionate about solving it?
I think I saw firsthand the impacts of dehydration on my own life. Like I'm an active guy, like running and do an Ironman and like working long hours, hustling, locked in 16 hours a day, all that. And I'm like drinking energy drinks and coffee and caffeine and nootropics and like biohacking my 1% everywhere from ice baths and saunas.
I can feel that. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah. And that was my world. And I was like, why am I still tired? Like, why am I still getting slumps? Why am I not getting good sleep? Like what am I missing? And I was like, fuck, I'm dehydrated. Like I'm actually not having any water all day. I'm just drinking caffeine drinks and coffee and all those other things. And even in the sauna, I was like sweating out stuff and not replacing the sodium I'm losing in sweat. So it was like one of those obvious things that's in front of me the whole time. Like you've been told from a very young age to drink more water, stay hydrated, making sure you're getting your 3 liters in or 2 liters in. I just wasn't doing it. And then when I just scratched that itch and went down that rabbit hole, I realized it's not just about the amount of water you're drinking, but what's in your water, making sure you're having the right electrolytes to absorb it into your bloodstream and into your body. Because you can have as much water as you want, but if you don't have the sodium and things like that in it, you're not going to be feeling the benefits of it.
Let's talk about product to market fit, because I think, when you're going around the second time round, you start approaching things differently. You go through more steps of validation before you commit time and money into a new venture. What steps did you go through to validate you had product to market fit with Hyro?
I think when you have product market fit, very quickly. Like we've sold out of stock, like maybe up to our 8th or 9th time now. Like every time we produce a batch, it's like gone before the next one is available. And I'm like every time like doubling the size of the batch. Like the numbers are getting scary. I just bought millions of sachets and I'm like, surely I don't need a million. And I'm like, fuck, I need 4 million now. Like it just keeps going up. So where with Shine, like sometimes it was we had great, like we were one of the fastest growing beverage brands when I was doing Shine. But we still had like stuff going out of date. Like, because one, I think you were doing bigger production runs in beverage to start with Shine. But 2, I think we were still trying to find product market fit, year 2, year 3, year 4, we're still tweaking the formula. We're still tweaking the product. We're still tweaking the brand. With Shine, with Hyro, it's like the conversion rate's like unreal. Like the repeat purchase rate is unreal. The like repeatable network effect of people telling their friend is huge. So I think you look at like just the fundamental metrics of like a D2C CPG brand.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, like revenue per visit's epic, CPA is epic, subscription rate's high, and we haven't even, like, we've just got started. Like there's so many levers still yet to pull, and it's like we can't even keep up.
So with a business like yours, how do you balance like CAC and LTV? Are you someone that's happy to not be profitable on the first sale because you know so many will return? Or have you set up a model and like the unit economics make sense where you can still grow and scale and acquire customers profitably from the start?
Like very early days, you're kind of hoping for that second purchase. I think now we're break even if not profitable first order, which I think you should be in today's world. I'm probably less of a fan of like long-term LTV and pray it comes back.
It's a risky game unless you have like a lot of that funding behind you as well.
Yeah,
right?
You need funding and confidence. And if it doesn't work out, you kind of are stuck in this funding cycle and funding losses, and you get debt financing and all this kind of stuff. And it's a scary place. I'd rather find, if you have the choice, which most people do, like find a product that is first order profitable, find a way to market it to convince someone to buy it with a good quality, like cost to acquire.
Let's for those watching on YouTube, obviously we've got your branding on the table now. I think you've done really well in that sense. Now, I know there's two key principles that entrepreneurs like bounce between. It's like speed wins, right? And there's also like wanting everything to be executed to the perfect amount. Now we can't do that with everything. Otherwise things will take too long. And then particularly early stage entrepreneurs, when they're looking for perfection, for one, perfection is subjective. It doesn't really exist. And too many people get caught going around in circles before pushing it forward. But in terms of the brand values or visuals, what were some of the elements that you obsessed with in the first 3 to 6 months to build? So when people see and have that first touch point with Hyro from the start, they're like, wow, that's a really cool, memorable brand. I want to sort of know more from them.
Yeah. I was looking at some of the old mock-ups this morning of like where we started to where we landed. And I think for us, one of the biggest turning points was like, you look at what's on the market and then we're like, cool, like now none of that is what we're doing. And so many brands go, oh, this one's doing really well. Let's like look a little bit like that. And like these 5 brands are playing in this space. We should try and fit within that so it doesn't stand out. It's like, no, do the opposite. Like zig when everyone's zagging. And we did a positioning graph of like fun versus boring. And we looked at like everyday use versus just occasion use. And we kind of go, where's the white space to play? And it was like, this fun, playful, but still premium and kind of like athletes should be using as much as an everyday consumer. But really trying to make it delightful to be interacting with the brand whilst like having a sense of premiumness and having a sense of confidence about it. So I think it was like witty, premium and playful, like the 3 words.
Where do you think most like first time Ecom founders go wrong when it comes to like brand positioning or not executing their launch properly?
I would say they just don't think about it. I feel like so many people are either just like fast following some other brand and it's like a copycat thing. And as long as you're following, you never lead. You're not going to be able to like become number one if you are following number one. So I think part 1 is like dig your own hole. Be aware of category principles that you don't go and like violate some like known law of like you just need, and this happened at Shine, like we were a beverage, but then we did it in a shot that was set on a counter that then had like nootropics, which were new, and it had like a ginger lemon lime health drink flavor. So it's like 3 or 4 different steps away from like the core consumer who was an energy drink consumer. But like as soon as we put it in a fridge and made it chilled and carbonated, but still had those like innovation tactics of like natural and nootropics and sugar free, it was enough of a familiarity, but then enough of a newness. And I think with Hyro it's the same, like every sports drink that I can think of, every hydration electrolytes drink, it's like either super clinical and medical, like old school, hydrolytes and things like
style,
that. Yeah. And it's found in a chemist and you have diarrhea
fuel.
and you get 20 in you.
Drink it after a big night on the beers, like that sort of thing. And then you don't really think of it outside of that.
Correct. Or you look at like a sports drink and it's like actually quite low electrolytes, high sugar. It's for hungover tradies. Like, and then you look at like the sports world of it and it's like very athlete, very performance, very like, if you're going for a 50K run, you should probably appeal to that brand.
Yeah.
And it was like, let's just make sure we're not doing any of those things and like play to what a mainstream consumer might want to look after.
So let me ask you this. Obviously you're not someone that's a first time founder. You've got experience, you've got a network, you've got, some finances behind you. But that being said, what's the scrappiest thing that you've done to grow Hyro that no one would expect from the outside looking in?
I think that's why we're trying to document it, is because like 99% of the day is just doing shit. Like it's customer service emails, it's production issues, it's going out and packing boxes. It's spending Saturday morning. I've got a 1-year-old at home as well. And it's like, we're dragging him out of bed at like 6 a.m. to go to a run club of 20 people and setting up a hydration station of 8 liters. And we're hand in hand, red cups to people when they finish a run, small talk about the brand. And we're driving 30 minutes to do it in the pouring rain. Like I do that weekly. Like it's not like a one-off, let's take some photos and shake some hands and kiss babies PR thing.
Yeah.
It's like we're literally in the community, like 2-3 times a week. Every Thursday for 6 months, we went to a run club and just set up a hydration station. And like, we've got a young family at home. I'm trying to train for marathon. Like I've got plenty of other things to be doing, but I think having humility to go and actually spend time with potential customers, understand what their questions are, what their first perceptions are, what their pushback is, why wouldn't they like it, flavor reactions, language of how to explain it to people that resonates with different audiences, who's drinking it, who's not. Building some sense of like, it's not just an online retail brand. It's like, okay, there's a sense of it's humans and it's real people and there's a face behind it. I flew to New York and left my kid at home just to run the marathon because everyone in the US who was going to be there was in that one town for a meeting. I ran in a freaking Hyro man suit. Like I ran Gold Coast Marathon in a massive Hyro suit, which was super hot, tried to break the world record. Just, I think, do shit that's like not at all fun or scalable, but like I think put body on the line and show up for the community goes a long way.
I love that approach. Let me ask you one question because I've been speaking to people about this a little bit recently. How did becoming a father make you a better entrepreneur?
I think for me, being a father changed my life a few ways. One, I was no longer the most important person in my life. It's such an obvious thing to say once you have a kid, but so like hard to fathom before you have a kid. Because for me, at least, I was always trying to climb the mountain as fast as I could, as big as I could, because it was like, look at my achievements and look at my status and look at my competitive nature and I win. And then as soon as you realize like that's not what it's about and it's not actually that fulfilling at the top of the mountain, you end up in this like depth of despair and valley of despair. And then you start climbing another mountain and this mountain's actually about other people and service. And, it's a Buddhist philosophy, but like the more you serve others, it serves yourself. And if people are feeling sad, like go help someone. Like you'll feel pretty good pretty quickly. It's not like, oh, you need a me day. It's like, no, you need other people day. Like go help other people. Like that's an essence of humanity. So I think for me, like doing it for Harvey, doing it for my family, doing it to serve and protect and provide and doing it with them as well. Like, man, like success for me is doing things you love with people you love.
Do you still have the days or the hours or the moments where you feel a little bit sorry for yourself, it's all a bit much and then you have to like get yourself back into the right gear? Because I think a lot of people that are early stage in their journey, they have those moments and they see people that have built successful brands and they feel like they're always motivated. They always feel like doing the work and there's no discipline involved. But what's your experience with that, do you think?
Man, even last night I was like in the office at 8 p.m. Like I missed putting my baby to sleep and, it's just endless shit. Like it's just, as soon as you have a win, there's 5 other non-wins waiting for you around the corner. And I was like, what am I doing? Like I want to be home with my family. I don't want to be the dad who's never there for those little moments and magic moments is what I call them. And then like, as I was having that moment of despair or like, sorry me kind of, I was even filming it on the vlog. And then I got a message from one of our investors and one of our advisors and I sent him an email with something earlier. And like, he was just like blown away and he was in tears around something I'd sent him. And like, he was so appreciative and grateful and it's like, fuck, it just like makes it all worth it in those little moments. So I think it's very similar to being a parent. It's like 99% of the time you clean nappies and dealing with shit and screaming babies and sleepless nights. And it's like, that doesn't sound fun as a job description, but like you ask most parents, they're like, it's amazing, it's magical. Same for business owners. Like most people look at the highlight reel of being an entrepreneur businessman and they're like, oh, that sounds so cool. You get to be on podcasts and investors and lunches and super yachts and big exits. And it's like 1%, 0.1% of my day. The rest is just setting up for that moment.
Off the back of that question, let me ask you this now. Entrepreneurs often glamorize the hustle. You've seen heaps of content creators do that. Famously, like Gary Vee started this whole thing and he's like, no, that's not what I mean. But how do you think you would define the hidden cost of building a brand like Shine, building a brand like Hyro? Because it's pay to play. You don't get to build one of the biggest brands in a category by working 4-hour work weeks like that book. There is a hidden cost. How would you define that hidden cost?
I would look at it more as an investment than a cost. And I think in the same way you'd put some money every month into a savings account and it's there for a rainy day or there for a big purchase or there for a big return in the future. It's the same thing. Like the more you put in that account every day, the quicker it's going to build and the quicker you're going to be able to take out of it some other material thing. So I look at like an investment. I go, is this investment worth it? Like what am I actually trying to get out of it? Am I willing to make that investment and deposit every day? And if not, like don't do it. Like I think Some people sit there for 16 hours a day because they think they should.
Yeah.
And they're not actually being productive, and they're not, they're just scrolling different Notion templates, or they're fucking sign up for a new app of productivity. Like they're watching shit on YouTube. It's like go do something else, or like just accept that you're there for entertainment. Like,
so I think one of the biggest skills any entrepreneur needs to learn to master or improve is prioritization, because there's a million things. Our to-do list never ends. How have you gotten better at prioritization over the years? And have you settled on a structure or a framework that you make those investment decisions? If I'm investing 15 minutes, half an hour, I want to get the maximum ROI on those investments. How have you gotten better at prioritization over the years?
I would say I was far, far more rigid early days. I would say I was like very military. I think one of my year's themes was like year with the robot, and like just wanted to be so locked in. I didn't even think about alternating my schedule. I think now I play more with my energy and kind of go, what do I feel like in flow? What do I feel pulled towards? What do I feel like I want to do? If you want to do something, man, you'll do such a better job if you're forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge like discipline over motivation guy, but within the realm of things you should be doing, and there's, as you said, there's 1,000 things. Like if you're drawn to get creative and film some content and create some ads, like do that in that moment instead of trying to go, no, I really need to spend some time in a spreadsheet because I said that was in my calendar between 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. So I think within a week context, within a day context, like play with your energy, play with your flow, play with what interests you. Mm-hmm. And that's going to get 10 times the return on that hour, that 15 minutes, than trying to force yourself into something that you're kind of like half-assing.
You spoke about discipline versus motivation. What do you think's the biggest lesson that you learned watching your father in business as you were a teen or a kid and coming up, and that's impacted the way you are as an entrepreneur now?
I'd say 2 things. I'd say 1, that it takes hard work and it takes weekends and late nights and all that stuff. And 2, like I don't want to miss the moments. I'd say, I love my dad and we have a great relationship now, but I think he just wasn't around. Like he just wasn't there for the first 12, 15 years. I think he said that to my mum, like, hey, I'm going to build the business, I'm not going to be around. And I don't want that for my kid. So I think I've started earlier and I've worked harder from when I was like 18. I started my first corporate job, and then my first business when I was 19. So I think I've like put way more reps in. So by the time I'm 30, 31, like I'm probably in a better position than my dad was. And 1, because I'm standing on what he did as well from his work. So I'm grateful and blessed that I did that.
I love that perspective. Now you've clearly grown and evolved a lot as a human being and as a man in between the Shine and Hyro journey. How do you think your definition of success has changed from the Shine days to Hyro where you sit today?
I'd say if you're like, I pretty much got most of the things I set out on a vision board when I was 20. I wrote down, let's say property, and let's say family goals, and let's say car goals, and a watch and a certain amount of net worth and that kind of stuff. And like 99% of those things came true by the time I was 27. And then like 27 to 30, I was like, having this empty kind of feeling inside, going like, why am I not feeling fulfilled and happy and blessed and satisfied and content? And, I was probably drinking too much, and I was like chasing like pain relieves and like trying to avoid this like uncomfortable feeling that like my life is actually not what I thought it would be. And I was chasing the wrong things the whole time. Like I was climbing up the wrong mountain.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I've had a similar experience that, I started like my first business, Happy Skin Co, when I was 24, and within like a couple of years, my life had completely changed. And I found myself over the last couple of years being like, I've gotten more than I ever would have dreamed of, when I was a kid. I grew up in the suburbs of Southwest Sydney, didn't have a lot of money around me, didn't have anyone in my family or close friends that had businesses. So for me to like launch a business, make millions of dollars and change my lives, like I ticked off all the boxes I only ever thought I could dream of. And then you get left as you mature and you realize what motivated you at the start isn't going to continue to motivate you for the next 10 years. How do you start reconciling what truly from the inside motivates you now and what alignment looks like for you moving forward? Because I think a lot of people are going to have that moment where they realize, shit, that path I was on is no longer going to motivate me. But to find the clarity on the next step it's not like a snap the fingers decision.
Yeah. For me, it's like the courage to even become aware of that. A lot of people just keep numbing it, keep avoiding it, keep down that path because there's so much sunk cost in it. And they get to 50, 60, 70, and then they go, fuck, I've got 30 years of regret there. And I'm grateful that I took a courageous turn and said, nah, like I'm actually going to go in a new path. What happens after you have the awareness? That's probably all of it. And for me, it was like some deep reflection, some deep introspection, a little bit of circling back to like what really lit me up as a child. What did I want before I knew any better? And then I think trying to remove the ego, have some sort of ego death to go, what's not me? Like, what am I doing for my last name, not my first? And kind of what is the type of person I'll be proud of when I'm 50, not when I'm 30? And what's not the Instagram version of myself would admire and be proud of, but like my son, what would he say about me at my funeral? Like, I think that stuff becomes pretty clear, like what the type of person you want to be and where that takes you, like where you end up. I think goals are important, but I think like how you get to achieve the goals is probably more important.
I love that. What are you doing for your last name, not your first? I think is that honestly gave me goosebumps. I think it is difficult though sometimes for entrepreneurs because a lot of us kick off these journeys and we're quite selfish with our time and selfish with our priorities. I don't mean in like a traditional sense where it's like I'm gonna not do anything for anyone, but like we're so driven by these things that sometimes it can take a big realignment to reconnect and refine that purpose. Now you mentioned it was like a big decision to move on, and
just to add to your point, I think that's like the false narrative of self-reliance. I was a big self-reliant guy because I, read Emerson's essay and thought I can do it. And it's generally because we have some unmet need of like someone lets down at some early stage.
Some chip on your shoulder, something to prove.
My dad didn't give me enough love when I was a kid, like I'm going to give myself the masculine love that I need and to drive and push myself harder than anyone else could to get eventually maybe some version of his love, but also I think just like not needing it in the first place or pretending like I don't need it. Mm-hmm. And I think that shuts us off through a sense of like lack of vulnerability to true connection, true creativity, true love, true purpose and meaning, and true peace. If you always got that chip, you're always not whole and you're always like looking for that extra puzzle piece that's somewhere out there. And it's like, no, it's within you the whole time. You just like spend the time, give yourself a hug and like open up to where you need help. And then people around you will fill that puzzle versus you trying to find it yourself.
Yeah, and I think certain environments will put you in a position where you're confronted by these things and the realizations become super clear. Like I've been with Mel for like maybe 3.5 years now. Before that, I was relatively single for most of that period before, and I thought I had it all figured out. And then when you come and you pair your life together with someone else, you realize all those things you think weren't affecting you or you didn't need, they fucking were. They were just hidden behind a couple of different layers.
Yeah, so relationships is like the ultimate mirror, right?
The ultimate mirror. It'll show you everywhere that you need to grow and where you're lacking and where you still need to do the work. Now, I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest part about stepping down from your active role with Shine?
I think I had to stitch my identity to it. I think I go all in on these things and my life was Shine and it was entwined, and where Steve started and where Shine started and stopped was unclear to me. And like, because the journey and the brand's still there and it's not like the story's not finished, I felt a sense of like, I'm kind of like letting someone else write the ending, and the ego part of me thinks that they won't be able to write it as well as I could have written it and all those things. And I think I just had to let go of what happens next with Shine.
So did you still own like a stake in it?
Still a shareholder, yeah.
Still a shareholder? Okay. It can be, I understand how that could be like a sort of a conflicting, to go through and find that decision. I'm sure there would have been like internal battles and mindset shifts that you had to work through to get to this point. But I want to, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, for me, it was like, sometimes you have to like crack yourself open to like get freedom. And that was kind of like, like I was probably had built my own jail, my own identity, like I was so locked into that. I felt like I couldn't move outside of it. So it was like I had to go through that cracking process to get to the sense of freedom.
I've used this analogy describing my own story at different times. I think sometimes we can become prisoners of our own success. 100%. And you feel like you're locked into that because anyone else would be so grateful to be in that position. What are you doing, Steve? You should stick it out and see it through and all these things. But it's like at the end of the day, I think like those decisions, they're not logical decisions. They come from your intuition. You have to trust and follow that. But I wanted to speak a little bit more about Hyro, why we got you here as well, and talk some of the more like tactical things and thought processes that you really kept forefront when you moved forward to launch a new brand. Now, you're obviously moving in like the wellness space is like a really, saturated space. It's really crowded. What were some of the considerations that you actively made or decisions that you actively made to cut through the noise when launching into a space that, it seems like the wellness space is growing more and more every year, but with that, there are a lot of competition. Yeah, what were you consciously doing to cut through that noise?
I would say it's such a misconception that it's a competitive space. Like if you just take a filtered lens, maybe because I'm on the inside, I can see it differently. But you walk into a 7-Eleven, there's 9 doors, and then let's apply just like some really basic kind of table stakes filters of like, give me something that tastes good. Fair enough. Give me something that's low or no sugar. I think that's most people's kind of request, particularly around beverage. They don't want to drink their calories as much anymore. And then thirdly, like give me something that's a sense of natural and like not just full of shit. If you agree, like not crazy filters.
True.
And then you go, okay, cool. Like tastes good, water's out because that just tastes like nothing. Has low or no sugar. Okay, like most of like milk and proteins out. Most of traditional sports drinks are out. Most of Coca-Cola's out. Most of Gatorades and Red Bulls are out. Most of like and then like natural and like some sort of not full of shit. And like you're left with maybe a shelf of 7 doors. You're left with one shelf of like what you would consider most consumers looking for, some version of those 3 things. And now you're going, okay, I'm playing within one of 3 things, not one of 500 things. And then within that, where's the areas of opportunities to improve? And then like apply that to hydration and you're like, there's nothing. And you're like, oh, now I'm one of one.
So how do you think about NPD in the future?
I'd always look at where's the puck going to, what are the consumers saying today? But at the end of the day, like what is something that is in your own life or your own world that you're doing or wanting to do? I think scratch your own itch is such a good. Some people tell you don't to do it. I'm like, understand your consumer more than anyone. Like if at least you know you've got a core persona, the chance that you're like a unique butterfly, like you're the only person in your world that has your tastes and preferences. I don't subscribe to that belief. I think we generally find there's groups of people that follow groups of trends. So like you'll find other people like you and you understand them. At least you're starting with a consumer base.
You speak about knowing your customer. Now you're the founder, CEO, or co-founder, CEO of the business, and you're 12 months in and you're still speaking about replying to customer service emails yourself. Why do you think it's important for the founder of the business to stay in touch with the customer service and the customer at the core?
If you don't have customers, you have nothing. Like we're here to serve customers at the end of the day. So if you like don't talk to them, like you're kind of missing the core part of business. Like a core part of business is solve customer problems. So in our case, we solve dehydration problems and give them tasty, delicious beverages to solve that. So I think it's just like such a waste of opportunity. That being said, like, should you reply to all of them every day? Over time that isn't scalable and you should be spending time on better things or other things to be able to enable more customers to come in and even inquire in the first place. But yeah, like understanding your customers, knowing that one, whilst I said start with maybe yourself or people you truly deeply understand as a customer, you ultimately should be very quickly trying to expand into new customers and understanding them and talking to them to get a different perspective is probably next as important.
I want to speak to you about some of the moves you've made in the marketing of the brand, because like you said, there's the obvious moves like, okay, meta ads and, organic content and storytelling and all that. But you've spoken about some, unique things. The Jesse Itzler running the marathon. You did the 6 a.m. Saturday, Sunday morning with the hydration station, giving up every weekend. What was the first non-obvious move that you did that maybe generally people wouldn't think about in terms of the traditional e-commerce playbook that created a disproportionate amount of momentum that helped fuel the growth in the early stages of the brand?
I would say I don't know that many, if any, brands in Australia have done it, which is like getting bigger name ambassadors and celebrities and athletes to actually invest in the company and become owners. It's kind of a common issue, becoming more common in the US with like creator-led brands. I found very few brands that did it here with like a good operator behind it. So I think, we were one of the first to then get the Sarah's Days and Quade Coopers and Daily Cherry Evans and like these big name, well-known household name athletes and ambassadors and get them not just going, hey, we'll pay you 50 grand for a post, but like they gave us 50 grand and invested in the business. They're part owners. They're coming on the journey with us. They're here for long term. And I think that just got to a whole new level of credibility and authenticity with their audience to go, shit, Sarah actually invested this. Like she must believe in it. It must be good. She's not just flogging this thing. Let me, try it out more than I would other brands.
Now that's something that you've definitely done that was unique that I wanted to ask you about. Now I'm sure we could speak about just that whole process for an hour in of itself, but what do you think was the unique essence of the pitch that you presented to these people that got them interested enough to give you the time and then eventually give you the money and come along for the ride with you?
Look, I think you need a certain level of credibility coming to the table. I think me have done it before helped. I had good display, like I knew what I was doing. I had built brands before. But I think part two is like truly understand like what does a win-win look like? It's traditional sales, but like a lot of these people, make a lot of cash. Like they're not looking or another 20 grand or 50 grand. It's like not going to move the needle for them.
Yeah.
What could move the needle for them is like, instead of, you give me 50 and I'll give you 5 million back, like that could move the needle. But even more than that, it's like them wanting to have skin in the game, be respected as a part owner of a brand, not just being used for their audience and reach. Get their ideas, get their culture as part of the business. come on the journey. Like a lot of them want to learn about business, like athletes specifically, like they're finishing up the game, they get paid millions of dollars. And then it's like, what's next after 35? And it's like, well, here's an inside look at this startup journey going from zero to hundreds of millions. Then that gets their name attached to it. That gets their knowledge built up around it. And then they opens up to more opportunities around investment. So me providing a good path angle portfolio for them to be involved with, I think gives them not a financial reward only, but also like a reputation, network, and learning opportunity as well.
You've got a pretty all-star cast of investors that you built. Was there any for you personally that you were like internally, like was the biggest pinch me moment, like you were most stoked that you landed out of any one of them?
Look, I'm a rugby player growing up, so I think like a Quade Cooper and a Daly Chervins stood out because I watched them on TV as a kid and all their jerseys and things. And it's probably my dad's mates and my dad friends and fans of them
all
as
the
well.
Manly boys are pretty stoked, I imagine.
Yeah. So like that was a nice kind of just blokey moment.
Yeah.
But then when you look at like someone like a Sarah and her audience is just like
incredibly engaged.
Yes, such a loyal fan and follower, and like her selling power is just unmatched in Australia. So I think when you start even just her just like hinting at a post or like her tagging us randomly early days and going like, holy shit, we just sold out, and like Shopify was just going crazy. And I think that was like a pinch me moment, like, wow, like she's on the journey with us. She's come on board and she's never done an investment outside her own brands before. And that was the same for Daly, the same for Quade, same for Sarah, same for Ruben, same for a lot of these talent. This like we were there kind of first, which was nice.
Yeah, I've got pretty good relationships with a lot of like people in the rugby league space, and like we've had someone on the podcast and managers, and I think the good managers are starting to get their clients to start thinking about life after football investments, because even the like mid-tier players are still earning $400,000 or $500,000 a year, which is a lot of money compared to most people. And it's like, you have a finite amount of time. For some of them, it's 3 years. For the lucky ones, it's 10, 15 at the absolute most. You need to really start thinking strategically about life after.
On it, but like 2, 5, 10% of your net worth should be probably put into these like higher risk, but like if they work, they get 10, 20, 100 times returns. I think, but unfortunately, like we spoke to a lot of managers. Most of the time we went direct to the talent because the managers, like they get incentivized on cash for clients. So it's like, how do they get 15% of money that they gave to us? I even spoke to one of them. I was like, I'm happy, like, cause they had some other clients. They're like, would they be open to it? I was like, yeah, I'm happy to like give you a finder's fee to then like, based on what your talent invests, happy to reward you somehow.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, I don't know how that sits. And I was like, well, you're now saying no to opportunities that could be the best thing for your client because you're not worried about getting paid.
Interesting. The rugby league managers world has been in the media a lot this week, so we'll leave that part there. I want to ask you, for me and my experience with my own performance, my own success, and all the amazing people I've interviewed on this podcast, like high performers and entrepreneurs that do really well, often I see their success linked back to their habits and their routines. Has there been anything, whether it be a new practice or a routine that you've built over the last few years that have helped you unlock your potential?
Say, making sure my hydration's dialed every day.
Well, your brain's what % water? Like, I think that's pretty important.
I think like, look, to be honest, from an energy levels perspective, I was amazed with how much hydration actually helped. And that's a selfish plug into the product. But at a macro level, I'll try and say I'll take retreats every quarter and try and just spend some time detaching to set up the next quarter, plan in, reflect in, both on what just happened and kind of setting goals for the next one. I think that's a really healthy practice to break up the year into kind of more sprints.
Yeah.
And then on a daily basis, as much as you can, I've always had professional coaching. I think having a coach to like have an hour every week or two to like, go, what's the most shit that's moving the needle? What's the stuff that's upsetting me? Where am I not living up to my best and what we call below the line, and making sure I'm like sharpening the axe, so to speak, every so often.
What is one of the biggest, lessons or, perspectives that you got from your performance coach that you could share with us today?
He has this amazing ability to like judo kick me on like everything. Like I'm going in there thinking it's an issue about someone else letting me down or someone else has upset me or frustrated me, and like 10 out of 10 times it's like on me, and like I've gone in there with a bias or a like lack of communication, or I've gone in there trying to manipulate the situation, and like I've got the learning opportunity from that, not like hoping the other person changes. I get the opportunity to change. And I think it's such always like every time I'm like so sure I'm right on it, And then you just like through this beautiful art of conversation, like chips away at my confidence that I'm right. And then there's a chance I could be wrong and it's 1% chance. And then it's a 100% chance I'm not potentially 100% right. And then it opens up the floodgates. Like, oh, okay, cool. I'm seeing this from a new perspective.
Yeah.
Now.
And I think that radical accountability for any entrepreneur is really important. If you want to be a master of your own destiny, you've got to realize that, you know, you're in control of these things. And if you can't just point the finger and blame other people, you have to look within and what you can do to control the outcomes in the future. Right? Mm-hmm. If you're honest with yourself, if there's anything that you can think of, I'd love to know, what do you feel like is a current mental limitation or limiting belief that you're still working through or you still think you can improve on?
I have a bias towards like this locked in 16 hours a day, you know, and I'm like, I think that's what it takes. I really do. And I like that it takes it because there's a part of me that enjoys the hustle and the grind, and my identity is attached to it a little bit still. There's like a curiosity that I have of like, what is the like most effective dose? And is it 16 hours a day? Like maybe,
yeah.
But like, is it 12? Is it 10? Is it 7? Is it 2? Is it 1? Like, what is it? Like, I don't think I've like truly like experimented with the opposite. And not saying I like want to go and work an hour a day because I love work and I think work adds to a meaningful life and towards meaningful goals. But I'm like open to the idea that it's not 16 hours.
And it would change whether it be quarterly or every year as the business evolves,
seasons,
right?
yeah.
It's seasonal, but really good to have that awareness, to realize, to challenge yourself to not always do what you've always done, because again, you can do this now, what, your late 20s, early 30s, I imagine, something like that. Are you going to be able to do this when you're 40 and you maybe have 2, 3 kids, right? And you know?
And I want to go like, what other ways of working is like optimal? And I think only having one way is, I think, limited, and being flexible to change is kind of the art of it.
You've spoken about having your identity attached to your brands at times, which it can be good. It can be fuel. It can be like something that limits you. But apart from like those like identity ways, like as growing these hyperscale brands with, you know, 12 to 16 hours every single day, have you ever felt moments where it's affected your mental health negatively?
I think like, at least for me, I talk to myself like, probably always have a baseline anxiety of like 10, 20%. Like it's like a gentle simmer. And it's this like little voice inside my head that I could do more and I could be better and I'm not living up to my potential. And at the end of my days, like the person I could have become meets the person I became, and that person's like looking down on me and like they're a stranger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh fuck, that gets me up. Like that gets me moving. And you know, that can be a lot, and that can be a lot, and you don't ask for help and you don't. And I think I hold on to this like masculine belief of like, stiffen up, like hold the weight of the world on your shoulders and like be that Atlas Shrugged kind of version of it. And just like, it's our job to hold it all. And it's our job to hold the feelings and the weight of those around us, and like, don't complain and don't ask for help, and just kind of like get stronger. And like this, and everything that's coming to us is a chance to grow and chance to improve. And it's like, that shit gets tiring. Like that, there's a moment where that might feel overwhelming, and you get to those moments, and it's okay to just crawl under the blankets and get a cuddle and pat yourself on the head, or ask for someone to pat you on the head and have a cup of tea. And most of the time, as soon as you do that, you're like within an hour, you're back.
Yeah.
Like, or the next morning you're back at it. But I think not recognizing that, trying to push through, I think can probably lead to even deeper lows.
I think that the big thing in that you just were speaking about is you need to give yourself permission to have those moments. Because once you just submit to it, like you said, it can be an hour or just one night's sleep and you wake up the next morning feeling brand new. But I found out, I think it was last year, that I have ADHD. Like I got fully tested and everything. Didn't come up through school because I did really well and all that. And I think only finding out that like ADHD diagnosis for me allowed me and gave me the permission to be kinder to myself in those moments. And it's not giving yourself an excuse. There'll be days where it's like you're fired up and you're happy to work 16 hours, but then there'll just be certain things or certain moments where at the end of the day, we are human beings. We're not robots, like the year of the robot that you tried to do. And I think sometimes just giving yourself those moments to unplug, reset, whether it's like a quarterly unplug, like you said that you would do, it can be in the long term the most productive thing to do. But so many people, especially male entrepreneurs, feel like if I ever take the foot off the pedal, everything's going to fall apart.
Can I ask you a question about your ADHD diagnosis? Like, I would probably say I'm like self-diagnosed, and I definitely probably have parts of dyslexia and things like that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm almost like avoidant to like go get diagnosed, because I'm like, would I use that as a label and excuse? And like, does that become a victim of my own diagnosis and that kind of stuff? Like, how's that impacted your life? Are you seeing yourself more unlocked because of it, more like now locked into a sense of identity because of it? using it as an excuse, or is it like kind of now knowing your like inbuilt limitations, you're kind of like solving for it? Like,
It's a really good question. I think it's been 90% of the time it's been a positive, just the understanding and awareness to work with yourself better. Like if you're trying to work with someone in your team and you want to know how they work, how to motivate them, what to do when they're stressed, what to do when they're feeling good, I think 90% of the time it's been a positive, and I haven't sought medication or anything like that. It was more just the understanding for me to think about, okay, now I know that's how I am. Think of myself as an instrument. How do I get the best out of myself? So it has helped, but I think there is moments, maybe 10% of the time that, you give into that. But also it's like, for me, it's like, what the fuck is the point? Do I need more like dollars and cents in my bank account, or do I want to be happy? Do I want to live this human experience and try and be present and spend time with family? Like sometimes, I'll still be working 9, 10 o'clock and I'll stop working and I'm like, still can't even really switch off when I finished working. I'm just like, like I'm going to jump in the sauna or just put it like, I can't even really, deal with that yet. So it is a really good thing. I think if you did do it, I think the net outcome
would be positive. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change the way your brain is now not having the official diagnosis. Yeah. So you're already dealing with it. It's just sometimes the understanding gives you the opportunity to work with yourself better than against yourself certain times. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think the way society's structured, so many people are on that spectrum of it.
Well, I think like most people, it's a spectrum, right? Most people are on some part of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I read a book like The Courage to Be Disliked. Have you ever picked that one up?
I've got it. Do we have it? No, I don't have it. But I've been of course I know it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, I picked that up, and they take probably the extreme view of it as like all these things are kind of like made up, and the more that we're like giving labels to like who I am, it more locks us into this sense of even the fact that we are a person and and then we lose the fluidity of like all the personalities that we actually are, and then you kind of play more into the narrative of it because it serves the narrative. And I'm like trying to be as like labelless as possible, just in case I decide tomorrow I'm not that, and then I'm not. I don't know. But then there's probably some medical stuff that I just can't avoid.
Exactly. But I think humans in general use labels as excuses, particularly as to why I can't.
I think that's what I'm allergic to.
Yeah, as to why I can't. But you know the type of person you are. I don't think if you did find out you had it and then you had those moments, you're like, I haven't, I'm going to let myself off, but then you're just going to be like, well, I'm not going to let that label define me anyway. So maybe it's going to be more motivation for you to continue going down the path that you're going down now. We've got a few minutes left to ask you a couple final questions that I think would be really good to get your opinion on. Now, again, I'm putting you on the spot here. You don't have any of these questions but before you sit across from me. But what's a popular business mantra that you personally believe is bullshit? Could have been a book you read, a saying, a strategy you hear all the time.
Yeah, if you come to mind, I'm just trying to think which one's like the most one that resonates. I would say this, like, don't do business with family. I think it's like the greatest thing in the world you can do. It's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
But for me, as I said before, success is doing things you love with people you love, and if you can do it with family, it's just like the most amazing thing in the world. I think most people avoid it because they don't have the tools or the techniques or the maturity or whatever it is to like navigate the situation that comes up with it, like communication and conflict resolution and all those things. Like, you're going to ask for more chances to have a fight.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
There's more topics and more chances to rub each other the wrong way. But on the flip side, that's more reasons for growth. And on the other side of growth is that connection and love. So
yeah.
I'm like, it's worth the risk, but there's definitely risks.
Yeah. I think that's really, really good point as well. It's like we spend, for some people it's 35% of their life working. For others it's more like 50%. It's like, why would you not try and incorporate 100%. That? And I think there's a lot more when like Mel doesn't work with me all the time full time, but I think when I brought her into my work world more, you have more of that shared understanding and connection. So it also adds other layers to relationship. It isn't just the negatives and what can happen if it goes wrong, or what can happen if it goes right.
I think if you're an entrepreneur, like, you're probably obsessive with the problem you're trying to solve in the business and the brand. Like, it's probably what you're going to be talking about all the time anyway.
Exactly,
it's what you're going to be thinking about all the time anyway. Having that extra context to do that with someone else and feel like there's a teammate there the whole time, it's like that's the dream life if you can nail it.
So let me ask you two final questions. What is the grand vision for Hyro?
Look, I think the one we talk about public right now is building a $100 million brand in public. I I think the like overarching mission is to build the most loved hydration brand. And I think the most loved brand because I think it's such a high bar. Like it's such a beautiful bar that serves other people. And it's not like a brand they use or that's like the number one in the market from a dollars and cents perspective. It's like the most loved. Like they fucking get behind us. They're on our team. Their community. We're serving them. They can feel that. And then the output of that is probably we're number one. But like I'd take most loved over number one.
Yeah. And then the one tactic for a new like Ecom entrepreneur, a new brand founder, that if they were going to nail and become like an expert in one, strategy, one tactic, one element of the business, what do you think that should be in 2025?
I think it's getting some ambassador or celebrity ownership in the brand.
That's a key hack. It's a key thing that not many people do, right? I love that. And where can everyone find you online? As I said, definitely plug the YouTube because there's a lot of great stuff there that I know a lot of our listeners would love. But where's the best place they can find you and Hyro online?
Yeah, well, all the normal places, but definitely trying to build the YouTube up. So building Hyro on YouTube. I think it's on my name, Steve Chapman. But like and subscribe.
Do all the good things there.
It helps the algo.
Yeah, we'll put all Steve's links in the description or in the bio. Steve, thank you so much. We'll have to do another episode in a year or so to talk about the next chapter of growth. We could have easily spoken for 3 hours, but congratulations on the first year in business.
Yeah,
congratulations on becoming a dad. And are you just recently married?
Yeah, I got married like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, congratulations on all that, and I'm wishing you all the best, man. I'll be following along more closely after this as well.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, bro.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor and share this with them, and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.